Well, I'm so happy to be here. Can you hear me? Can you hear me, Isaac, on the back row? Okay. I come as a stranger, but I've been welcomed. And I hope you understand my language. We don't know each other. You may not be used to my accent. And if it's early in the morning or late at night, it betrays that I grew up in Kentucky, not Massachusetts.
As did I.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Where?
Stanford, about an hour south of Lexington.
You don't have to tell me where Stanford is. All right? Shimony. Down near Nancy. A town called Nancy. So anyway, I'm very happy to be with you this morning. Thank you, John. You're a good guy to have around. I feel secure. Thank you, Martine. Thank you, Sean and the choir. Thank you, Andrew. Don't put anything up that competes with me, please. And thank you, sir. I don't know you yet. Jeff, how are you? Okay, so here we go. Let's see if we can understand each other and be strengthened and warmed because we came to church today. So when I was in my 20s, I was the pastor of a small church in rural Kentucky in a place called Bewleyville. And it sounds like Hooterville. The church did not have indoor plumbing. But that was okay because everyone who went to the church lived close by. But I had to drive an hour to get there. So by the time I got to church on Sunday mornings, I desperately used those facilities. I was the only one. There was a member of the church in Bewleyville who was a county agent. Some of you may not know what a county agent is. A county agent lives in a place and works for the State Department of Agriculture and provides continuing education and information about programs for the local farmers. And this man, who was a county agent in the church with the outhouse, was the smartest man I've ever met. His name was Tommy Triplett. And one day, Tommy Triplett, the smartest man I've ever met, spoke to me, the greenest man he had ever met, and said, "Pastor, before I die, just once, I'd love it if a preacher would tell me what he or she means when they say, 'Follow Jesus.'" He says, all my life, preachers have said, "Follow Jesus." What do they want me to do? And I said, well, that's easy. Serve the Lord, walk in the light, do God's will, don't worry, be happy, have a happy day. Everything I said sounded like I had read it off a bumper sticker. I mean, the truth is, what do we mean when we use our church words? What do any of them mean? And sometimes we get so used to them, we never stop and think what they mean. And so ever since that day, I have had Tommy Triplett's voice in my head. Every time, because I'm a seminary professor and I'm a preacher, so every time I get up, as if I knew, explaining God, I hear him saying, what do those words mean? Is there a way you can say it that's true, that's not just religious mumbo-jumbo, that's not just a religious version of that material deposited under that shed in the churchyard? Well, that got a response from somebody. So that's what I wanted to do today. Today, I want to talk about the heart. I want to talk about what it would mean to have Jesus in your heart. I'm nervous. Isaac, can you still hear me?
Yes.
All right. Well, thank goodness for a great PA system. So I want to talk about what it means to have Jesus in your heart. That's the kind of thing Baptists say. I've got Jesus in my heart. What do we mean when we say it? So, first of all, you're still there, right? First of all, let's figure out the heart business. Someone once said, I think in French, but I don't know French, so I only know it in English. That from the heart, from the inside, every life is a failure. From the inside, every life is a failure. That no matter how grand the achievements, no matter how padded the resume, no matter how dizzying the spin, there is a basement deep inside our memory and identity where skeletons are buried, and we know whose they are and where it is. That inside place where there's a vault where we have tried to store away the deepest things that haunt us. That's the heart. My great, well, see, I'm from Kentucky. I'm going to say ant, but you understand I'm not talking about an insect. My great aunt was in her 70s. And at a family gathering, I asked her, do you feel any different on the inside than you ever did? And she answered, on the inside, I'm still a 12-year-old girl. That place inside us where we never age, where we have been the same ever since we turned the corner from childhood. That place, I can't see her now, but what the little girl who was there. And I saw her eyes just above the pew. Just everyone, don't scare her, but just kind of sort of notice. All right? That place, there's a shell inside that little girl where there is the seed, the holy seed of everything she will ever be. She doesn't get a new transplant. It was there from the second she was born. And it's just going to, day by day, year by year, grow. That place inside us that has been our core our entire lives and never ages, that's the heart. A few years ago, I was at a clergy gathering in Boston, and there were a lot of Roman Catholic priests there. And, you know, they always wear their collars. And Sean will understand, I try never to wear a robe, but I will if it's like a wedding or a funeral. But I don't like to wear robes because that's not the way we do it in Kentucky. But Roman Catholic priests wear collars. And those collars once were a symbol of dignity. And many of them said now they feel like those collars mark them like the striped pajamas of somebody on a chain gang. Mark them as suspicious and dangerous. And you know what those priests said? That this Roman Catholic clergy abuse scandal had brought them back to their core, had brought them back to their initial calling to be a priest, had brought them back to prayer. That place where you finally take your stand after a great shaking in your life, that's the heart. That's the heart. So, just so we're clear, are you with me? Now, do you know where your heart is? Are we all there? All right, so let's talk about what it would mean to carry a person in your heart. You know, it sounds funny in a way if you think about it. How could you have someone in your heart? But it's an idiom, and we all know what it means. The truth is, how many persons do you carry in your heart? We carry people in our hearts. Parents for life carry children in their hearts. Children for life carry parents in their hearts. It's not always pleasant to have people in your hearts. There are people in your hearts in the balcony cheering you every step of the way, saying, I know you can do it. There are other people in your hearts in the cellar, shadowing you, saying, you can't do that. Who do you think you are? Oh, the people in our hearts, blessing us, cursing us, encouraging us, discouraging us. These are folks who visit us daily in memory, and at night they come to visit in our dreams. There are people who are not physically present to us, but just as real and vital as if they were. Where is the place where they visit us? It's the heart. So we've got hearts. We've talked about what it means to have someone in your heart. Now let's talk about what it means to have Jesus in your heart. How does Jesus get in to your hearts? I can't even say. It's more than I can say. But I know for me, Jesus got into my heart during childhood. I heard stories and read stories and was taught stories about Jesus from the Gospels. And I came to know many of those stories by heart. One of the biggest doors Jesus entered my heart was through hymns. I mean, just this morning, I'm trying to get ready. I think I succeeded to come here. And all of a sudden, this song starts going through my mind. What a friend we have in Jesus. All our sins and griefs to bear. What a privilege to carry everything to God. Thank you, choir. Can we find a friend so faithful who will all our sorrows share? No, this one kills me. Jesus knows our every weakness. Take it to the Lord in prayer. Jesus got into some of our hearts through songs. And now we carry those songs with us everywhere we go. You get to know those songs like that one by heart. You don't even have to look at the screen. Another way Jesus gets into our heart is we speak to Jesus. We utter prayers in Jesus' name, and we feel heard. Jesus, and as we walk around with this friend, we get a feeling that Jesus overhears all our conversations, that Jesus is the divine listener, that Jesus is our conversation partner, that Jesus accompanies us in every experience of our lives. Those are some of the ways Jesus gets in your heart. But then there's other people who end up miles from home, prodigal daughters, prodigal sons. They don't know. They'd forgotten. They're not sure where Jesus is. And then one day, and I'm not saying that's good or bad. It doesn't matter. There's so many ways to be on the journey. But then one day, one of these prodigal daughters or prodigal sons hears a song or drives by a church or is overwhelmed with a memory, and all of a sudden they realize they'd forgotten it, but Jesus was in their hearts. And all of a sudden they know it and remember it. Maybe that's why some of you are here today, and 5 years ago you wouldn't have been. I'm talking about Jesus in the heart because that's how I know it. But that's not the only way to imagine a vital spiritual life. I mean, back in Bewleyville, there were just Baptists and Methodists. Those were the only people there were. And it was interesting because the Baptist church had a service that started at 10, and the Methodist church across the street had a service that started at 11, and you went to both. I mean, there's nothing else to do in Bewleyville but go to church. But I'm not in Bewleyville anymore. And I live in Newton, like many of you live in Needham. And there are people here who are not Christian. And I think especially of people who are Jewish. The prophet Jeremiah, you saw the scripture, you heard the scripture, said he saw a day when people carried the Torah in their heart, the law. And that's not the law of the letter. That's the law of the Spirit. And that is a beautiful and awesome thing, to walk around with the Torah in your heart, as many faithful Jews do. I stand in awe before that. I don't want to pretend that what I carry in my heart is better. And I honor the Jewish way of knowing and following God. Still, Christians talk about Jesus in your heart. So what does it mean to have Jesus in your heart? It could mean 1,000 things. I mean, when I was a greener minister, I had all the answers. And it's amazing. All I know now is I'm on a journey. And the journey captivates me. But I don't know more than I used to. And it's okay. That's the main thing. That I can live now with not knowing and feel loved and held by God's grace. But what does it mean to have Jesus in your heart? You know, there's a lot of data. Because there's a lot of churches. And there's a lot of creeds. And there's a lot of books. And there's a lot of formulas. So I'm not even going to try to tell you which way to go. I ask you to look in your heart. But let me tell you a couple things it might mean to have Jesus in your heart. If Jesus is deep inside you, it can break your heart. It can break your heart. Because when you think it's good enough just to take care of your own people, when you think you're a good person when you've loved your family, when you think the definition of virtue is to be loyal to your peeps, your group, Jesus will talk, and you will hear Jesus' voice, and he will say, let me tell you a story about what it means to be a neighbor. Let me tell you about who is in your circle of concern. And you'll hear the story of the Good Samaritan. And you'll know that you owe mercy to every waylaid stranger, not just the people in your group. If Jesus is deep inside you, it can break your heart. When you think it's good enough to be kind and merciful to those who deserve it, to those who earned it, you will hear Jesus say, didn't you see me? And if you know the story from Matthew 25, didn't you see me when I was in prison? Didn't you see me when I was sick? Didn't you see me when I was hungry, when I was thirsty? And then you'll know it's not good enough just to be sympathetic and compassionate to those you think deserve it. If Jesus is deep inside you, it can break your heart. When you think it's okay to join the mob, and I do it almost every time I read the paper and find out about some other fellow child of God who was caught. Like that woman in John chapter 8, a woman caught in adultery. And I grab the biggest stone I can find. And I want to hurl it and feel superior. And when you feel like that, you won't hear Jesus say anything. You'll just watch Jesus bend down to the ground and trace words in the dirt. And in the dirt, he will trace the words of that secret sin of yours that didn't make the paper. And when you see that, you'll know it's not good enough. Jesus in your heart, it will break your heart. But here's the thing about hearts. Every time they break, they heal. Every time we fall and get back up again, we get stronger. As your heart breaks and heals over and over again, as you allow the presence of Jesus to mess with you, as you have the courage to understand your failings, your self-righteousness, your blindness to others, and you live with that. As you accept that, you find yourself changing. Your heart, your capacity to love grows stronger. Your heart, your capacity to hold people inside your circle of concern grows wider. And your heart, your intuition about when you need to talk to someone, when you need to intervene, when you feel the Spirit moving you to step out, it grows truer. So Jesus in your heart, it can break you open, but it can also make you brave. It can make you brave. When you are tempted to go for the gold, to go for some glory, some money, some prize, some ambition, something you want so badly, you will hear Jesus say, "The devil offered me all the kingdoms of the world, and I said no." You don't have to sell your soul. Hold on. Be strong. I'll be with you. And when you face a difficult task that you know is right to do, but you would do anything to avoid, you will hear Jesus in your heart say, "I set my face toward Jerusalem. I wrote the book on tight squeezes. I blazed the trail through difficult paths. Follow me. I know the way. I can get you through." And when you face the most severe, the most frightening, the most painful trial, I'm not sure what it will be for you. I hope I've had all mine. But whatever it is, when you are up against it, you will look in your heart for Jesus. And this time, again, Jesus won't say a word. But you'll see Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane. The man of sorrows, acquainted with grief, sweat beading on his forehead, sweat falling to the ground like blood, it says. No sweat, brother. But I'm at a dramatic, almost ending point. So, because just let's get back to where we were. Oh, this world, this life. We're not children anymore, are we? Except for this beautiful little girl. So we know what difficulty can be. We know pain. We know loneliness. We know days when we don't have hope. And the question then is, what does Jesus do with you and for you in those moments? And I'm saying it's one of those times when you don't hear a word from Jesus. You see Jesus. You see Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane. A person who has been there. And so instead of words, you just feel a hand take yours, a hand that says, "I will not let you go." And that grip says, "I've been there. You're not alone." And guess what? This time, this difficulty, this trial, you don't have to be the hero. You don't have to fix this. My grace is sufficient. I've got you till we get on the other side of this. I will get you through. So, that's this morning some of what I think it means to have Jesus in your heart.